Reworked cinematic short. 12 small coins. The room went quiet when they hauled her up onto the dais. Jax Marin had been to dozens of gray market auctions across the rim. Places where broken ships, unwanted technicians, and odd jobs changed hands for the price of a meal. He knew the pattern. Hawkers, bored bidders, the scent of oil and old promises. He had never seen a Valari in the flesh. Valari didn't usually end up here. Valari commanded fleets, patronized palaces. They were the kind of people who rearranged planetary law as casually as others wipe grease off a console. She was wrong for the room. Too tall, like a statue carved from night. Skin like glossed basalt with fine silver lines running across her temples and jaw like the map of some storm. Her wrists were cinched in dampening bands, devices designed to scrub implants and mute whatever strange resonance might live inside. Her eyes were a molten metal, falling everywhere and nowhere at once. Not defeated, but something like hollowed patience. Lot 47, the auctioneer droned. Valari, no papers. No lineage tag. Sold as is. A ripple of low laughter chased his words. No line of descent, no court seal, an exile, an inconvenience. Bids came sluggishly. A sports ring boss with too many scars flicked a claw and raised a bid on principle. Jax's throat tightened for reasons he couldn't name. He hadn't meant to speak. The number rolled out of him like a rusted joint. 15 seer, he said. It landed in the air like a thrown coin. The pits went still. The ringmaster, a many-limbed Dravak, snorted and bared rows of teeth. Human, you are not fit for this, he said with all the slight of species arrogance. 15, Jax repeated, and the auctioneer let the hammer fall. He handed over the credits, almost all that remained after another month of birth fees and spares. In return, he got a thin sig tag that registered temporary possession, a shove from the muscle, and the cold weight of the dampeners as guards jerked her toward him. She stumbled, recovered with an economy of motion that made his chest ache, and for the first time looked at him, those molten orbs boring at the seam between his ribs and his ribs only. Her voice, when she spoke, was like glass wrung gently. Why? Jax's hands were steady because hands can be when the heart is ragged for long enough. He unclipped the dampeners. Nobody's worth a toss at that price, he said. Blunt and useless. I paid more than they wanted. You're free. Freer than the room would let you be. He tossed the sig tag into his palm and watched how she measured it. Freedom purchased for 15 seer, she repeated. There was something almost amused in the cadence, and for a single breath he saw a flicker, confusion, curiosity, cross the bright surface of her expression. You are either reckless or you are desperate. Mostly broke, Jax admitted. Sometimes reckless. Either way, come with me. I have a ship. He didn't look for gratitude. He looked for absence of violence. She hesitated only a moment before following. The craft was a patchwork thing with more ducting than spirit, called the Juniper's Mercy after the daughter who had gone with the convoy that never finished its route. It kept flying because Jax kept it moving, because he had learned the stubborn mathematics of life in drift space. Fix what's broken, don't linger where creditors hunt, keep a heater in winter. She stood in the cargo hold, arms folded, taking the chaos of spare coils and half-built thrusters in with a careful, almost puzzled stare. Bunks through the partition, he said. Hot plate left of the ladder. Showers a trick. Water recyclers got a temper. Keep your showers short. You sleep where? She asked. In the cockpit, he said. Always have. Less cold there. Less noise. You are not afraid I will harm you? He blinked. Are you going to? She considered, then answered with a flatness that hid more than it revealed. I have not decided. Good enough. He turned to prepare food. Simple things, rehydrated protein, something to soak a little life into them both. He set 2 trays down on a table bolted to deck plates. Eat, he said. She sat. Her hands moved with the same precise deliberation that had recovered her on the auction stage. Valari do not require sustenance in the evenings, she said. Yet all bodies hunger. Then eat, Jax said. They ate in a silence that was not empty. More like an interval, a pause neither wanted to break yet. Grief had taught him that not every silence needed filling. After a time she set her bowl down and said, at last, a name. Aelith. Jax Marin. He offered an old human gesture, a hand. She hovered a fingertip against his skin, a polite, minimal contact, and withdrew. Her skin was cool and smooth like river stone. You are odd, Jax Marin. She sounded almost pleased. I have been told that. Days passed in small motions. Work on a stubborn recycler, the ritual of turning wrenches at speed, her watching him move like someone cataloging variables in a complex system. When she finally spoke to him in the engineering bay, she did not wrap her words in the softness one might use with a stranger. You used to be a soldier, she said, not a question. He kept turning the coupling. Colonial defense, he said at last. A long time. Retired early. After a daughter. The statement landed clean like a probe. The coupling slipped. His hands remembered a different tension. 3 years ago, a convoy had not survived its route. She was 6. He hadn't been there. You read my logs, he accused, wiping hands on oil-streaked trousers. I did not have to, she said. Your ship speaks. The name that wakes the systems when you power the main. June. The picture tucked by the instrument panel. You look at the sky as if it were another kind of wound. I fix things, he said. It was the easiest sentence he knew. Broken transports, temperamental pumps, people who had nowhere else to go. I keep moving. She studied him, then shifted to show the silver lines along her neck, no longer ornamental, but a lattice of healed scars, deliberate and cruel. The bright filigree traced the path of ritualized torment. They did this, she said. My own kin. Aelith's story came out in a measured, braced confession. A scion of the Valari high houses, third in the line of ascent until a death in the inner court had redrawn the map. A brother who seized power. A princess made an inconvenience. They had tried to erase her. They had failed. Instead, they sold her without title, unmarked, so that any buyer would become the problem, not them. Jax listened, understanding arriving as a shape in his chest that did not wear easily as pity. He had lost everything too. He recognized the quiet calculus of moving on without stopping to mourn. Your brother commands fleets, he said, making an observation. He commands 3,000 blades and a will of iron, Aelith said. So no, you cannot march on him with a spanner. He let a laugh, low and bitter. Maybe not. Maybe with something else. Aelith's mouth hardened. You do not want allies in parades. You want something quieter. They learned the edges of each other. She reached for a hydra spanner when he asked, their fingers brushing. It was a small thing and it felt like something large. The promise of ordinary contact. She was astonished by his tendency to treat her as a person, not as headline. He, in turn, saw scars that were not just wounds but histories. Nights, she asked one late hour, voice folded into the background hum of the survey arrays. What do the crew do when nightmares come? We sit under the stars, Jack said. Sometimes we tell stories. Sometimes we just breathe. That was acceptable, she decided. And so one night after the work of the day, they sat in the observation bay under the slow sweep of distant suns and measured silence. Her hand hovered near the console. His rested a shallow pace away. They did not touch, if only because touch is a kind of permission. 3 weeks from the auction, the call came in, a ping on the comms that turned the air metallic. Ships approaching, Aelith said, voice small but precise. On display, 3 sleek shapes crawled toward them, hulls glinting with the spiral sigil of Valari authority. They found me, she said. Her fingers trembled against the console. Jax's hands slid into motion. Get us to the jump vector. Prep burn. No, she said. They are faster. They will catch us. Then, suddenly, he saw a different path. The Keth drift wasn't a place for the faint of steering. Heavy radiation, sensor interference. But it was also a labyrinth where familiarity could become an advantage. He had once mined corridors there. He knew a narrow throat in the ringed rocks, a cave big enough to swallow the juniper and mask its signature. We don't run, he said. We hide. It was not elegant. The jump was harrowing. The second burn sang alarms as hull plates complained. Ranging shots skimmed along their shields. Jax threaded the craft through ion storms and asteroid teeth until momentum and memory found an entrance, and with engines killed, they drifted into black calm. 3 Valari hunters swept past on blind sensors, their captors' patience like a tether outside the ring of radiation. "We're trapped," Aelith said. "They will wait." "We'll wait," he answered. He checked supplies. The air recycler could hold 3 weeks of breathable grace. Food was thin. It would have to be enough. Then she surprised him. She did not ask for exile. She asked for a chance. "I will challenge him," she said, voice flat and certain. A formal invoke. Valari law binds the hunters when a challenger calls the right of claim. They must return me, escort me home for judgment. Her plan had the weight of old rituals, a blood rite older than whispered treachery. Her brother had left the ritual incomplete. He feared the consequences if she ever asserted public claim. Aelith believed the people remembered the father he had killed, remembered a gentler time. If she could speak to them, perhaps memory would become movement. "You could be taken," Jack said. "You could be left," she said, and there was a look in her that made him understand that she meant both the ship and their growing claim on each other. He thought of his daughter's face in the cockpit, the way the ship woke to that tucked photograph. He thought of all the small promises that bind a man to a ship. Then he made a choice that felt like the only honest one. "I'm crew," he said. "Crew doesn't leave. I'm coming." The journey home took 6 days that alternated between study, whispered plans, and the quiet learning of each other's histories. Aelith taught Jax the cadences of Valari ritual, the words that opened doors and made elders shift. He taught her how to keep an engine from coughing soot by midnight. The Valari capital was a hard and beautiful thing. Towers of cut crystal like frozen songs, seas that gleamed like polished mirrors. The world smelled of ozone and incense and old power. They descended together, her in the ceremonial gray of a claimant, him in a patched jacket that smelled of oil and policy. The summons was loud. The high hall filled with the rustle of the many houses. The trial, if that was what it was to be called, stretched into 3 days of arguments, counterclaims, and the raw old language of lineage. Aelith spoke of truth. Her brother invented proof from rumors. The council hovered, balanced between the scales of ritual and the tide of street memory. When the guards were called to silence the challenger, it was the people in the squares who moved differently. They remembered the dead ruler who had been kind. They had not forgotten the old ways. With chance and slow, swelling anger, they crowded the avenues. Soldiers hesitated. On a third dawn, when the torches flared and the palace doors opened, the old order shuddered. The tyrant fell not to the blade, but to the turned loyalty of his own. Aelith stood before the relic throne and chose not to lift it. "I will not take the crown," she told a world that had expected spectacle. "I will take a promise. Let reform begin. End the markets that sell our kin. Open courts to other species. Stop treating other sentients like mere cargo." When the eldest counselor asked, "And if we do not?" she smiled with a dangerous tenderness. "Then I will leave with the human who would not leave me. I will take our voice elsewhere, and patience will turn to impatience." Fate has a way of needing a hinge. Whether moved by fear, wisdom, or exhaustion, the council agreed to reform. Aelith's brother found chains where he had expected a throne. Months passed. The Juniper's Mercy became an odd fixture in orbit. A ship of welded seams bobbing among grand cruisers. Jax kept her running. There were always hulls to mend, pipes to reseal, systems to coax back to life. He was who he had always been, practical, blunt, tethered to small acts of repair. In the palace gardens that had once held Aelith captive, she found him at sunset, watching the light fracture over spires of glass. "You could have ruled," he said softly. "I could have," she answered. "But rule is not the same as being useful." She slipped her hand into his. "You taught me that value is not only blood and line. You taught me that being broken does not mean being finished. And you taught me that some things are worth risking everything for," he said. She turned to him. "Stay. Not as a token. Not as a device in court. Stay as my equal. Stay as my partner. He looked out at the city and then back at the man he'd been and the person she had been when she stepped up on that auction dais. An ember of something stubborn and alive. Then he kissed her beneath the alien sky, and it was less a conclusion than a beginning. The little salvage ship stayed in orbit for a long time. A human with grease under his nails and a Valari who learned the weight of vows not written in blood. They fixed more than ships together. They fixed the small liberties that make life tolerable. Warmth, company, the ability to be seen. Aelith used the power she could to remake things. Courts opened, trade practices reformed, and the markets that trafficked people thinned like bad weather. Jax kept on fixing. He learned to speak more of her language, and she learned the recipes he liked. They measured the future in wrenched turns and quiet promises. Once, while they watched twin moons touch the horizon, Aelith said, "You were worth more than 15 seer." He shrugged. "I just paid the right price." She laughed, an honest sound that scattered birds in the palace gardens. "We both were," she said. They kept repairing, ships, customs, each other. Because some things, even when broken, could still be made whole.